This video tutorial will cover how to configure a device for use with the sub and up time clock. Employees can only use devices that a manager has configured in the back end of sub and up and have been authorized by an allowed user as a time clock. The first step in this process is to create the device configuration. Go over to the left hand side, click on time clock, hover over configuration, and click on device configuration. From here, you'll see a list of all the time clocks that have been created within your organization. You can have multiple time clocks for multiple positions, and you'll see them all listed here on this page. If you want to add a new device, you can go over to the right hand side, click on the green Add New Device button, and this pop up box will come up. The first step is to actually name the device. And there's a lot of different types of devices that could be used as time clocks. You could have laptops, desktops, tablets, smartphones, a lot of different devices that could be used. So for this device name, you'll definitely want to name it something unique and something that includes a device name so you know which one that you need to adjust if you ever need to go back into the settings. So for the purposes of this example, I'm going to name this the number one desktop. And if you wanted to add any notes about this device, something that will help you identify it further, you can do that as well. Go ahead and hit continue. The second option down here is the time clock mode. Now, the majority of our customers use this in the online mode, which is where the time clock is always going to be connected to the internet. So if there's any scheduled changes or anything like that, they will update in real time, and the staff will be able to clock in and out of those shifts in real time. If you're going to be using this device in a location that doesn't have internet, maybe it's out in a field where it won't be internet connected, you can use the offline version. And the offline version is going to copy the schedule locally to the actual device. And from there, the staff will be able to clock in a location where there is not internet. This can only be used for the apps. So this would need to be either with a smartphone or with a tablet, not a desktop or a laptop. For the purposes of this example, I'm going to use the online option. Now, for login type, there's 4 different options, and this relates to how the employees are going to be logging in to identify themselves to clock in for a specific shift. The first option is standard. This is just going to be logging in with their sub it up username and password. This could be a great option for you. If you have a lot of people clocking into the same time clock device at once, let's say upwards of 20 or 30 people all at the same time, this will take some time for each employee to type in their username and password, so you may want to consider using a different method. The second option is uploading a PIN number for each individual employee. So a PIN number can be a mix of letters or numbers, or can be just numbers or just letters. And the employee will basically type in this PIN number that is given to them, and they will be able to log in and clock in for their shifts after typing that in. To enter in PIN numbers for each individual employee, you'll head over to the scan configuration tool, and you'll be able to enter these in individually for each person. If you have a large amount of PIN numbers you would like to upload at once through an import tool, you can use the scan configuration import to do that. There's also another video here in the time and attendance section of the knowledge base that will walk you through how to use that tool. The next option is the scan option. And with the scan option, there's 3 different ways that you can set this up. The first is a barcode scanner, similar to what you would see at a grocery store or any other kind of convenience store. And it's a handheld scanner or a scanner that's mounted to a wall or a table. These scanners can read 1D and 2D barcodes. A 1D barcode is what you would find on packaging of anything that you would buy that they would scan, and it would be able to read what that item is. The second one is 2D barcodes, and this is more like QR codes. So if you see QR codes, those would be an example of a 2D barcode. The 1D barcodes look more like a rectangular box with stripes in it, while the QR barcodes is a square that might have non-consistent black dots around it. The second option for the scan configuration is a card swipe reader. So if you're going to have your employees swipe a driver's license or a student ID card, this would be a great example of when you'd want to use the scan option. There are readers in the market that can read both 1D and 2D codes. So you'll definitely want to know on the type of card that you're going to be scanning, finding out whether it is 1D or 2D, and making sure that you are able to buy the correct device for that specific card. The third way is the scanner that's built into the time clock app. So if you're using the time clock app, we have a scanner that will pick up on 1D and 2D barcodes. Each individual employee account has a unique QR code within it in their SubitUp account that they can actually use to be scanned and logging in. So if you have a device using a time clock device, you'd actually be able to utilize a camera to scan that QR barcode within the SubitUp app, and that would allow them to clock in that way. So what this looks like is when the employee is logged in on their app, they can go over to the scan code, and this will pull up a QR code. This is an example of a 2D barcode that is unique to them. Please keep in mind that if you're going to use the barcode scanner option or the card swipe option, you'll need to make sure those devices are keyboard enabled. That will allow you to enter in the information into SubitUp for use with the time clock. To upload the values of the scan barcode for each individual employee, there's a couple different ways to do this. If it's a 1D code that you're scanning, you can go over to the scan configuration. You'll be able to individually click on the edit button here, and you'll be able to individually enter in and manually enter in that scan value right here in this box. Or you can go over to the scan configuration import, and you'll be able to download a template and be able to enter in their scan values for each individual employee into the template and then upload it into the system. Another way is a scan validation tool. And for this tool here, this can actually be used with both a 1D and 2D codes. So you're able to actually scan the value, and the value will pop up here. It will tell you if there is an employee that already has that code or not. And if no employee does have this code, you will actually be able to assign this code to a specific employee. And there's a whole nother feature there's a whole nother video on how to use this feature within the time and attendance knowledge base. And if you're using a 2D code, you would need to use this method. Or if you're using the barcode that's in each individual employee's SubitUp account, that connection already exists and there's no need to upload anything additional. And the last option is the phone number. The phone number is going to come from the phone numbers that you entered in on their staffing page. If they have a phone number listed in the system, then they'll be able to input that in and clock in if you choose this specific login type. For the purposes of this example, I'm going to go ahead and use the standard login. The next option is roster punch. And if you have this on, it will allow managers of the positions that can clock in on this device to quickly punch staff in and out on the actual device. This is always a good thing to have on, just in case that if you're using a card reader or a barcode reader and something is not working right with those devices, or if, for instance, a employee forgets his password, if there's any kind of error or something going on, a manager will be able to clock them in and out of their given shifts. So always recommend this is on. The next setting is schedule type. You have two options here. One is by position and one is by event. For by position, you're basically going to just be listing the positions that are going to be using this time clock device. So you'll be listed whether it's 2, 3, 4, or as many positions as you need it to be. You'll just list those positions there, and those positions will be able to clock in using this device. The majority of our customers do use the position-based setting here. The other option is the event-based setting. So basically with the event-based setting, you would choose a start date and an end date, and then you'll need to choose a specific event that you will be using this configuration for. Even if you have a lot of events but you use the same time clock device for multiple events, it's probably best for you to go ahead and choose the position setting, and you can just list out all the different positions that are going to be using the time clock during your events. For the purposes of this video, we're going to do the position setting. For the date range, you're going to want to put the start date in as today's date if you're using it today. And For the end date, if it's not a time clock that's going to expire at any time, it's always going to be used as a time clock. You can leave this end date blank. If it is a time clock that you're only using for a given amount of time and you no longer want to use this device after a certain time period, you can put the end date there, and after this end date, it will no longer be valid. If you are using offline mode instead of online mode, so if you selected offline up here, you will need to put in an end date here in order to use offline mode. For choose positions, this is when you are going to be telling the device which positions can log in and clock in for their sub and up shifts on this device. So you might want to, it can be just one. If you want to select all the ones that you're a manager for, you can do that as well. Only positions that you are a manager of will show up on this dropdown. So just make sure that everything that you are setting up here in the system, you are also a manager for. The next option is to choose the allowed users, and this is just basically who can connect this device configuration with the specific device that's going to be used as the time clock. So you can put either a manager or an employee down on this in this section here for allowed users. It won't give the employee manager access or anything like that. It's just going to give them the ability to connect this configuration to the specific device. This can be useful for if you are setting up a device that is in another location than where you are. You can put somebody who's at that location as an allowed user and will allow them to connect this configuration to the device. So you'll see your manager list pop up here, and you can add yourself or any of the employees as well. This authorization is also just a one-time authorization, so it will only need to be done once to connect this configuration to the specific device. After you have configured everything on this list, you can go ahead and click Create Configuration, and your configuration will be complete. Now that we have created our configuration, it's time to authorize our device. If you are creating this configuration on the computer that will be used for the time clock, you can click on the blue timetrackpay.com icon here. That will take you right to the time clock. If it's another desktop or laptop, you can just type in timetrackpay.com into the URL, and it will take you to the time clock. If you're using a mobile device, if you are using a tablet or a smartphone, you will need to go into either the Google Play Store or the Apple Store and download the Sub It Up Time Clock app. And when you open that for the first time, you'll be able to authorize it as well. So as you can see here, it's saying authorization is required. And so you will just need to put in your username and password, or anybody that is an allowed user will be able to input their username and password. Select whether they are an employee or a manager, and it will log you in. At this point, if you've created multiple configurations, you will see a drop down here that will allow you to select which configuration you want for this specific device. So for instance, I say I want the number one desktop, and I will hit configure device. This has now allowed this to be the Sub It Up time clock. So this configuration is active, and I can now use this for any of the positions that I uploaded with the in the configuration settings. If you go to the settings page after you are in the system, you will see that the device is listed here as well as the mode and when it was last synced. And there are going to be some other options there. If you want to log in as a manager on the device, you can do that here, and you will be able to utilize all manager options. Going back to the main screen, the icon here that looks like 3 different people, this is the roster punch icon. So if you had this turned on within the configuration, your managers for the different positions that are active here within this device are going to be able to go in here and actually clock people in on the back end. So if they, for instance, see an employee come in, the employee either cannot clock in themselves, or maybe they forget their password, something like that, then the manager can come in here and can actually clock in employees as they come in. There is another video within the time and attendance knowledge base that will specifically walk you through how to use the roster punch feature. Back to the device configuration page. As you can see, we have our desktop name here. And if the time clock is not yet configured, you will see a red X under status. This means that this device has not yet been activated. So it has been configured, but it has not yet been activated. Once we Hit refresh here. That will turn to a green check mark. And this just means now that it has been activated, and it will tell you exactly when it was activated. And you can click to see any details here. Under schedule, if you see where it just says position and you hover over the icon, then you will see the position list that you are going to be able to clock in on the specific device. If you see a red triangle with an exclamation mark, this means that there are some positions that are uploaded within that are supposed to be used on this time clock that have not yet been configured for time clock use yet for that specific position. So in order to do that, you're going to want to go over to time clock data and configure the time clock for that specific position. There's also another support video on how to configure a position for time clock use. Lastly, if you are in need of creating multiple devices all at once and they have similar configurations, you can go and use the duplicate configuration tab here, and you'll click on that, and you'll need to rename this device. So if you're using, for instance, if you're having a new device for each individual employee, maybe it's their phones or another device, or you're just having a lot of other devices in general in multiple locations, you can rename this something specific to that person or that location. So this is going to be Zach's device. And then you can click on duplicate device, and that will actually go ahead and just duplicate the device that we've already made with this new name. And if you need to go in and, for instance, maybe add somebody else in as an allowed user or change anything else within that configuration, you can definitely do so. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to support via email, support@subitup.com, or via phone at 617-401-8733. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much.